So this is a review for Hawken Reborn, and this is exactly what the Steam store page says about the game. Return to the world of high-octane mech combat in Hawken Reborn. Construct your ultimate war machine and shoot your way through hordes of enemies to uncover the mysteries of Ilau, however you say the planet, in this brand new free-to-play PvE mech game. So yes, this was played on Steam. It's in total going to take you around 2 to 3 hours to complete what they have released. It's an early access title, so this is a review based on the initial early access version of the game. The file size for this one sits at around 9 gigabytes, and it's free to play, but there are microtransactions in the game, not in the form of cosmetics, which is normally how games are done nowadays. In fact, you can actually purchase a full-on mech chassis and weapons and everything within the premium store. In terms of how it runs, besides a couple of issues like an infinite loading screen during a mission and some occasional stuttering here and there, it did run pretty smooth, but I've heard it's locked to 60 FPS, so that might play a little bit of a factor into why it's smooth, because the game's not trying to push higher frame rates. So into the gameplay portion and exactly what to expect, what the game offers. At the very start of the game, you find out that it's a weird one in terms of how it's set up, because there is absolutely no mouse input whatsoever, besides turning your mech around, and the sensitivity is really high in this one. So when you press escape and you try navigating your settings, it's a pain just having to use your directional arrows. Although once you've done the tutorial that's forced in the game, when you go back to what I'm going to call the hangar, there are mouse inputs there. Like, you can move the mouse around and stuff like that. So what I did with this is I just plugged in my controller just to make life easier to play this one. And with that, a tiny little nitpick again, the button prompts, so when it says like hold F to scan, that doesn't really change for controller buttons. Like, it doesn't say B instead of F, like because I was playing on an Xbox controller. And the Steam store page doesn't mention anything about controller support or anything like that at all. So I think they've just kind of rushed with the inputs to the game. Controllers do work. I played the whole thing, the whole like 2.5 hours or what it roughly took me to get through this one. I played the whole lot on controller, so there's no issues or anything like that. But they don't really clear a lot of stuff up with this game. As I said, you are forced into a tutorial straight away, but luckily the tutorial is quite cool. It's going to teach you exactly what you need to know for the basics without stretching that mission out too far and having the mission itself too long. And then you jump in and you have a look, and there is a premium store. I understand it, I get it, it's free to play, they've got to make their money. But you can use a currency called scrip. That's the premium currency. And as I said during the introduction to the video, yeah, you can buy different weapons and an actual mech chassis, but the mech chassis is going to cost you £8 if you have no scrip, because it's 1,179, so it's 79 scrip over the £4 currency purchase. So if you've played this game for a little while at some point in the future and you have 0 scrip available and you want to buy the mech that's in the store, it's going to cost you 11.79 scrip. That's actually going to cost you £8 because it's 79 over the amount you get with the £4 purchase. There is also basic currency in the game called credits, which you can buy with scrip, or you can just earn through playing the game. You do earn some scrip playing the game, but you don't earn a lot. And credits are used along with materials and stuff that you'll find during missions to upgrade your mech and fit new parts and things like that. With the missions and earning scrip, I was earning 50 for every mission I played, but it does not show you that you're earning 50 scrip. It comes up saying that you've earned 0. Like when you see the mission complete screen at the end, you go back to the hangar, you see that you are actually earning 50 for every single mission. And that's the main missions that are in the story arc. But it's a bit of a weird one because the game has 6 story missions available at launch of the early access version. And you start off with 150, so 6 missions, 50 scrip per mission would be 300. On top of 150 would be 450, and I ended this one with 400. So there's a mission in there somewhere that doesn't award you scrip. But as I said, premium currency, known as scrip, you do earn some by playing the game, and they start you off with a little bit as well. Now jumping into the gameplay of actually being inside the mech and playing the missions and the patrol mode and stuff, I really like how the mech feels to handle. Jumping into the first mission, had a fair bit of infantry and stuff to deal with, along with a couple of mechs, including including a heavier variant of a mech, and they drop all the loot. You just need to run over it to pick it up. You're going to get loads of ammo, so you never really need to buy ammo or anything like that, because that is an option in the patrol mode. You just got to run over it when the enemies drop it, and there's an abundance of ammo. But all the different resources and stuff you can use to upgrade your mechs will drop off enemy mechs, and also through exploration and finding different materials and stuff as you're playing the game. You have a gear score in this game. It's a weird one. It actually starts you off in the 50s. The start of the story missions, you have to be 40. By the time you get to the end of them, it's recommended that you're 65, but without like farming for resources, I ended up doing the final mission that's currently available. My gear score was 64, so I was only one short. But I mean, if you're going to spend time in this game and you enjoy it, then yeah, there is a gear score system there. And I would highly recommend trying to push your mech as high as possible, because you do have boss fights and stuff to do in this game. And the very first one it chucks at you is level 70, so, well, tier 70 or whatever. The gear score is 70 for the boss, and I was 59 at the time. It was a tougher fight than the typical infantry and stuff, but it wasn't too tough to the point where I was struggling really bad with it, even being undergeared. I feel it should have been a little bit more difficult than it was. The whole game actually felt really easy. But as well as your weapons, your chassis, and your mech altogether, you were able to upgrade your weapons in terms of increasing their range, crit chance, reload speed, and you can go through different marks or tiers, whatever you want to call them. Like you've got Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, so on and so forth. They're level locked. You also need to actually do the upgrade, so resources and credits and things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of upgrades and stuff that you can do in the game, although I don't think many people will be spending enough time to actually go through all that without getting bored. And it took 4 missions in order to unlock the patrol mode, because you have a story arc with 6 missions, then you have patrol, and patrol unlocked after the 4th mission. And patrol is going to just throw you into the open world. It's going to give you random enemy patrols that are scattered around, or little missions you can do to earn resources for upgrades on your mech. After each mission, you are able to return to the portal to drop your resources off. You can buy ammo, and you can either choose to continue exploring, or you can return to the hangar and kind of end that patrol run. So you're just free to explore, do missions and stuff in the patrol mode until you want to leave. And the thing is, a patrol gets tougher and tougher the more missions you complete, so it becomes a lot more risky. But the rewards do at the same time get better, so it's entirely up to you with how you play the mode. Although, as I said, it becomes more risky over time, and if you don't transfer your resources, you go and then risk another mission. If you die, you are going to lose all of the stuff that you have gathered up until that point. And then, as I mentioned at the start of this review, I was trying to load into the 5th mission in the story arc, and I got stuck in an infinite loading screen. So I did have to Alt F4, but once I reloaded the game, it loaded me in fine. And then I said that it's not really too difficult, but the moment you come across the mechs and the drones that have lasers on them, they are brutal in this game. They absolutely shred your shield to pieces. So if you're playing this game, I recommend using your dash and your fight and flight abilities and everything, like your hovering. Use it often, steer clear of the enemy fire when it comes to those lasers. They are really badly balanced in my opinion. The difference between taking hits from a normal like machine gun to taking hits with the laser, yeah, the laser just goes straight through your shield. And it's rapid. You get a shield, you get your health. Once you've lost your shield, your health starts depleting. And if you come out of combat for a little bit, your shield will start to regenerate. So just make use of avoiding combat when your shield is low, because it does cost you credits to repair your mech. I think it's up to 200 if you're critically damaged. And I believe there's also another small bug in the game in the form of some enemies' health bars, like it doesn't display at all on screen. It actually made it difficult for me to determine who's an enemy and who's not in that like situation, but that was like, I think it happened once or twice. So it's another small problem, nothing too major. And in order to upgrade certain parts of your mech in Hawken Reborn, you do need specific resources. As I said, some of them are not going to fall from enemies. You are going to have to do a little bit of exploration in things like junkyards, facilities, and so on. Which means as well as the story arc missions, the patrol and stuff, like it's not just about doing missions. There is a little bit of exploration in order to find certain resources. And then just a very minor issue to point out before we jump into the conclusion, because that is pretty much it for this gameplay. As I said, it's between about 2 and 3 hours, depending on your exploration, how much of the patrol mode you want to play and things like that. But an enemy mech did get stuck in place, so there is an issue with that potentially happening. It only happened once, but obviously issues and bugs in games are on a case-by-case basis. So because that has happened at least once, there is a chance it's going to happen more often. There's a chance you might never ever see it. And then into the conclusion for this one, it feels like a really, really bad PC port of a console game. There's enjoyment to be had from this game, so if you are interested, it's free to play. You can download it, try the game and see what you think for yourself. But in my opinion, it does feel like a bad PC port of a console game, and they've added a microtransaction store into the game before they've even fully implemented mouse support. And as I said, the sensitivity when using a mouse is stupidly high. And it doesn't matter what you do, like turning the sensitivity down and stuff, it feels really, really bad with a mouse. And by the time you finish the story arc in this game, all of the content they have provided, like depending on how much time you spent in patrol, I went in there for probably about 15-20 minutes. After you have finished all of the content, you're going to be sat at around level 7. That's where I finished it. And the current version of the game limits you to level 25, so you barely get to experience anything at all unless you are grinding the patrol mode over and over again, which is going to become boring very, very quickly. And all in all, I was starting to lose interest around mission 4, and there are 6 to play. I did play the final 2, and after you've completed the 6th mission, it just says coming soon, because this is a very, very, very early access build. It almost feels like an alpha. So yes, it's a free-to-play game, but the game doesn't offer cosmetics. It's actual guns and a chassis for your mech, which I believe is the wrong thing to do, PvP or not. And again, like the review, it's just personal opinion. And something that's a real big issue for me is this isn't always online game, meaning that you can never ever pause it. Although in its current version, it's single player only, and it's only going to get cooperative multiplayer in its full release, which they expect to be in around 18 months. So you are going to be playing an always online game for around a year and a half if they finish it on time, unable to pause it for a single player experience. I feel as though the Hawken Reborn is fun for a while, but the game very quickly becomes stale and boring, with mission objectives for the majority of the time just leading you to an objective, like leading you to that objective, just to scan objects. And it never really changes besides a couple of times throughout the 6 available missions. You might have to defend the mech, or I think there are a couple of times where you have to protect the payload as it's moving really, really slowly across the map and the areas that you've been in. And in my opinion, patrol for a single player will only be exciting if you are really, really into this game, which I don't think many people will be. But obviously that's not for me to decide, that's just my opinion. And like again, I feel as though they are really trying to push the in-game purchases. And yes, I fully understand they need to make money from their free-to-play title, but having the shop items directly under the play button on the Steam store page is really discouraging, and it makes it feel like they've just chucked together whatever they can for a small early access build of the game just to try and encourage purchases and just grab a little bit of money. I've got a weird feeling that this game won't ever actually see its full release, especially because after a little over 500 reviews on Steam, it's sitting at 21% positive at the time of me recording this. It's a mostly negative title and it's only just released. There are a lot of people comparing it to the original Hawken game and things like that. They've basically taken the Steam review back in time to the original game they played or whatever. People are getting frustrated about that, but yeah, overall 21% positive, over 500 reviews. I can't see this game actually getting its full release because them reviews are going to really put a lot of people off, even if it is free to play. And as I've said, I did enjoy quite a few parts of the gameplay. I love the idea of being in a mech and shooting loads of other mechs and infantry and stuff, and it's really destructive. I like the sounds and everything like that. Like, there's actually depth when you're slamming your massive robotic feet on the floor and stuff. The guns sound really cool and everything like that. But I did have to drag myself through the final 2 missions because I started losing interest, and I don't really have any intentions to come back to it. It's pointless playing patrol to upgrade my guns and mech chassis and everything when I could possibly have to wait 6 months for any more story content. So this is a game that I feel it's best to avoid for now until there's more content. It's very, very lacking content. They have said that it's an early build of the game, but I don't know why they're releasing it in early access if that's the case. They should have started with alphas and betas and things like that, then jump into early access or like something along those lines, not necessarily that specifically. But with the like microtransactions that are in the game and the lack of content and how early into the build of the game they've actually released it onto Steam, I feel as though they need a little bit of funding. And this game is developed and both published by 505 Games. So yeah, I don't really have any intentions to come back to it, at least until there is way more content in the game, which could take at least 6 months. As I said, they are planning to spend about 18 months in early access with this. And overall, just to wrap this one up, I'm going to say if you enjoy the look of the game, you are going to have some fun with it, at least for a little while. And it is free to download and just jump on and play, but there is no depth, the story's quite boring. It's such an early build of the game that you'll probably complete the story arc of the game in a couple of hours like I did, have a little mess around in patrol and stuff, and then probably just uninstall and forget about the game entirely. And on that note, we are going to leave the video there. If you enjoyed it, leaving a like is appreciated. If you wish to support me further as a creator, there are links in the description. Let me know your thoughts about the video in the comments. And if you want to watch more, you can click the video on screen. All support on the channel is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.